you hand letterers and illustrators out there. I'm Shayda, and in this video I'm going to give you 6 strategies for tackling those difficult shapes, like the letter S. So let's get started. So my first tip is get some graph paper. Graph paper will be your best friend when you're lettering. Now, once you're a little more accomplished, you may find that the grid alone is enough of a guide, but if you're doing something very precise or if you're starting out, I find it very helpful to lay down some guidelines. Here I'm laying down a cap line or a height line and a base line, so I know where my letters start and end. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to mark off how many units I'll use for each letter. So here each letter will get 3 squares. So that really helps me to keep my letters uniform. And now I'm going to add what is called, I think, the waistline. And you can mark that right in the middle, or you can raise or lower it. And that's where the middle of each letter is going to be. So that's where the cross on a lowercase t would be. And this, having that waistline especially, is going to help you to create a very uniform looking word. So here the cross on the A and the middle of the R both hit that pink waistline, and they look unified. I'll lay down an S, and I'm going to make sure that the S sort of curves on that line. And then for a tricky one like an X, you want to make sure that those 2 lines cross on the waistline. So lay down some guidelines on your graph paper. Tip number 2 is start with the basics. So we can all print the letter S, but I think so many of us have trouble when we go to hand letter it. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to print the letter. You do it in pencil, erase, change it, make sure it looks good. Then what I'll do is I'll go back in with my pen and I'll go around the outside and I'll go around the inside. And I could change up how thick or thin I want the letter to be. So I could do like a bubble letter or just do a very simple, straight sort of sans serif letter like I'm doing here. Then you just go in and fill in, get rid of that line in the middle, fill in the letter, and suddenly you've gone from a printed letter that wasn't so hard to make to a hand lettered bubble letter or whatever it may be. I'm doing an O now, so this just starts obviously with that simple circle. Then I'm going to trace on the inside and the outside, and I'm going to fill it in and get it looking the way I want. Ours can be a little bit tricky as well, and you're just going to see me do the same thing. I get my printed letter looking the way I want, sort of get that shape right. So if it's going to be very curvy or angular or whatever, then you're just going to trace around the outside, trace around the inside, and then you just have to cap off those ends. You can do them straight or on an angle or whatever you like. And then of course you can erase the pencil in the middle, color it in, and you're good to go. Tip number 3 is tracing paper and transfer paper. I've mentioned this in many other videos, and they're such great tools to use when you're doing lettering. So here I've written out far and wide. I've got it looking pretty good, but I'm not quite happy with the entire thing. So what I'm going to do is lay down my tracing paper, and I'm going to trace what I do like and modify what I don't like. So I like the way the A and the R look, so I'm going to keep that. I'm going to go over them and just make sure I sort of capture and extract what I'm happy with. And now I want to modify that F. So I can use the initial drawing as a guide, and I can just sort of make it a little bigger or smaller. Here I'm enlarging it and sort of making it just a little bit more curly Q, I guess. And then I'm also going to change the and there. I'm just making that a little wider. And then the word wide I'm happy with. So again, I'm just going to extract it, make sure I'm able to capture what is good about my rough copy. And I'll just go over that in pen. Now I've got it looking just the way I want. So I've really been able to perfect my image with the use of tracing paper. And of course it's my work that I'm tracing. So why not give yourself that tool? Now I'll take my transfer paper, and I can take this this finished sort of perfected rough copy, and I can begin the work of making it into a good copy. So I'll put that transfer paper dark side down on top of my cardstock or good copy paper, and I'm just going to go over the words in pencil. A nice sharp pencil is perfect for this process, and you'll see when you lift up the transfer paper, it's transferred that image. And then you can go over it in pen or whatever you want. Now, transfer paper sometimes smudges and it can be hard to erase. So another trick is to just use the graphite in your pencil and use that to transfer your image. That transfer won't be quite as dark, but the nice thing is that it'll erase really well. And here I'm just going to take my pen and I'm going to go over my transfer, and you can see now how easy this would be for me to create a good copy. There's not the stress there of having to do it from scratch. I've transferred my initial design. Okay, tip number 4, mix uppercase and lowercase letters. So the word Mary I did a lot at Christmas, and those double R's in the middle, they get sort of loopity-loop and it just doesn't look quite the way I want it to. So what I started doing was making the R's uppercase, and the rest of the letters don't necessarily need to be uppercase. And suddenly I've been able to sort of change the look of the word, and I find that's really sets you up for success. Tip number 5 is don't be afraid to copy. So you can learn a lot from other hand letters and illustrators out there, and you can sort of find people on social media and check, how do they do their S's? How do they do their R's? How do they cross their T's? How do they start a word? So don't just marvel at their work, really look at it and study it. And there's a big difference between plagiarism and it being inspired by and emulating. And there's nothing wrong with going out and sort of copying how someone else does their S's. And you can really learn a lot, and you can build up a social media community that inspires you. So add a lot of hand letters to your Instagram feed, and I think you'll find that you really learn a lot just through looking and maybe copying a little bit. Tip number 6 is don't expect perfection. I think we do ourselves such a disservice when we think of an artist as someone who can put pen to paper and magic just comes out. So when I start a project, there's a lot of trial and error and a lot of rough copies between the beginning and the finished product. And that's okay. And if you can take joy in that process, then I think you're going to find your work progresses a lot faster. Remember, use the tracing paper, extract what you like and throw away what you don't, and just keep on moving and going with it and have fun. All right, thanks for watching today, guys. I'll see you later this week with another tutorial.